Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Are you afraid at all about Antichamber's potential for success? You've gotten all of these awards, and I'm glad that you have, because I'd imagine if you hadn't had enough encouragement, you might not have felt as confident about moving forward with the project. But when you look at what's selling right now or what's popular, does it worry you at all that a game like Antichamber may not find a place in that?
Uh, no, and I've had people ask this, several times before. I'm like, oh, what are you going to do if this game fails? And I'm like, what do you mean? Can't fail. And they're like, well, like, what if it doesn't sell? And I'm like, that's not failure. Because at this stage, I have traveled the world and I've met thousands of interesting people. I have gained a huge wealth of experience and would be able to go off and, work at, very good studios around the world should I want to. And, I won all of these awards. I got all this exposure. At this stage, sales are a bonus. They're certainly I would like for it to do well. But if it didn't, then I have, other backup plans and exit strategy. And, I'm certainly prepared for all of that as well. I was speaking with someone at a conference in Melbourne recently, and they were actually concerned from the other perspective in that I had all of these, plans and strategies for dealing with every case, except for if it went, really well, because it was like, you're terrified of success. You're doing all of this, setup work for it. But if that happens, you're going to feel fucking miserable because you just wouldn't allow yourself to plan for that. So I think for me, it's certainly, the opposite kind of scenario. I'm totally ready for if it, fails or only does moderately okay, and I need to think more about what happens if it does actually do really well.
Wouldn't you just be like, I won, and now I got
Absolutely
money too?
not. No, absolutely
No?
not.
Tell me more.
You would feel the complete opposite of that, and certainly I've done this, several times in the past. One example was with so early on, I've done a hell of a lot of competing with this. So early on, I had a bunch of successes in a row. I had Sense of Wonder Night. I won a thing at an Australian festival called GCAP. I won Make Something Unreal. I missed the IGF, but I got to speak at GDC regardless. And so, it was kind of like, well, missing the IGF kind of sucked, but I got an honorable mention, which is pretty good for my first game. And I got to speak at GDC. That got me traveling more. And then I missed the, what did I miss? I missed something else, which was kind of devastating. I got E3, and then I missed like 3 things in a row, one of which was the PAX 10. And I was like, man, damn, that kind of sucked because, things felt like they were going so well, and now I've missed something. Oh, shit, what does this mean for me? Is my game now a failure? And then you think about it and you're like, well, no, it's not a failure. Who knows what was up with the judges? Maybe there are issues with my game. Let's go back and try and make the game better and work out what was wrong there, which I did. But through those failures, I was like, all right, I've learned from my lesson there. I'm not going to be burned by expectations, so I'm just not going to set those expectations, and I'll see what happens. And then I corrected too far to the other side, to where I entered the PAX 10 in 2011, and then immediately convinced myself that it wasn't going to happen, and I was totally cool with it. I didn't need the PAX 10, fuck those guys, whatever. I'll get around to sales, and I'll do fine then. And then I got an email to say that I got into the PAX 10, and I just broke down and was like, what the hell how do I deal with this kind of thing? Because I'd already convinced myself that I wasn't going to get it at all. So then I'm like, all right, it's cool. Fez is also in there. There's some other games in there. I'll go to PAX. They'll get all the press, and I'll do okay. And then I'll just have to sort of, work out what I'm doing with press the further I go along. Fez and Jamestown and other games will steal all of the press at PAX, and I'll work it out later. I'll get the IGF or something. And then immediately after PAX, you've got Kotaku and G4 TV and Machinima and stuff being like, best thing at PAX. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this again. I feel absolutely terrible. Now I feel more depressed because I wasn't expecting this. Now I have like extra pressure, etc. And so I have this, pattern of convincing myself that of doing all the setup work to try and make sure that something happens, instantly convincing myself that it's not going to happen, and then feeling absolutely terrible once it does. So,
Wow. Right. So you have to alter your own expectations in order to just cope with all the stress. But then, even if you set yourself up to think that the standards of awards and attention don't matter, then you get them. Then you have to wonder, whoa, man, you can make a video game about that mental process. Because that's a total challenge of the mind to try
that's
to survive your own
Antichamber.
psychology. Yeah, you already made that game. Yeah, that's intense.
Everything that I've learned about people, about myself, about coping with things, all just feeds straight back into Antichamber. So Antichamber is kind of a time capsule of everything that I learned throughout my game development history so far, all wrapped up in that. So like that's me throughout my early 20s.
Awesome. Why do you think there aren't, or are there? Are there more games like that than I know? Because it's a pretty rare thing when someone can just come right out and say, "This game is my mental state for the past 6 years," kind
Well,
of
certainly
thing.
games like Braid and Fez and Super Meat Boy, uh, they're also at that personal level, and you listen to interviews with like John talking about Braid or Edmund talking about the Super Meat Boy story. I mean, that's all in Indie Game the movie. It's
Mhm.
they're all personal games to the same degree. I just happen to be wrapped up in my head a hell of a lot more. So mine's a super cerebral game.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I just want every game to be like that. I'm not satisfied with like 100 games. I want all the games.